Brian.
Okay, next up we have Haytham Al-Hawaj, who's the co-founder of NEU Collaborative Space, amongst other ventures we'll be discussing shortly. Welcome. Welcome, Haytham.
Thank you.
Actually, Haytham was one of the first speakers at Serdab Lab. Back in the day, it was 3 years ago, Haytham did not have NEU, but he did have an application called Dera, which is one of the ventures that we're going to be talking about. But first up, can you just tell us what your experience has been in the entrepreneurial space and how did you get into it?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. It all started when I came back. So I went to school in the US. Came back here, I wasn't really excited or too excited about working in the government sector. But then I went down this route. I applied, I got a job in the Ministry of Health. I didn't like it, and I decided to leave as soon as possible. So we started off with creating an online platform that allows you to book soccer fields.
Okay, but can you elaborate who's we in this story?
So it's me and, well, I have several partners. I'm a big believer of, partnering up. It makes things much easier. So it was me and two of my partners, Adnan and Ahmed. So we started this online platform back in maybe 2008.
Okay.
And so this is how we got to.
This is your first entrepreneurial venture. Okay.
Yeah. And then from that we moved to the F&B. We've been working off of coffee shops basically. We didn't have an office. So we thought, well, maybe we can create a coffee shop that caters for entrepreneurs and startups. So we started Think Cafe.
Okay.
Yeah, and then do you want me to continue?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I want all the ventures.
So and then well, after starting Quartz, which is the online booking system, we sort of figured out the ins and the outs of developing a website and whatnot. So we started a development house designed, and so we still do have these two models, right? So we develop for other people, for other clients, and then we also develop our own in-house projects. And this is how we got around building Deera. So Dera is a non-profit initiative that allows, so it's an online platform that allows people to report issues with public services to the government. So you open the app, you snap a picture, and then the app picks up the location, and then we send it to the appropriate government entity.
And where did the idea of Deera come from?
I cycle. I cycle to get around, places. So I use it for commuting, basically. And one day I fell in a pothole, and it was pretty painful and embarrassing. And I tried to report this issue. So I called. I went through an entire process of actually Googling who's responsible for, issues with public services, and then I figured out it was the Ministry of Public Works. And then I found that they had a hotline that doesn't work. And then I talked to probably 10 people till I got to the right person. And then when I tried to report the issue, he wouldn't take it because I would have to give him the specific address. I didn't really know the specific address. So I saw the problem, right? I saw why the system was crippled. and this is how the idea came about.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have a few more questions about Dera, but I'll leave them for later. So let's continue the journey.
Yeah.
You set up Designed, and then?
Yeah, and then we set up one or two other startups. One of them, Snapprint, is an online printing service.
Okay. And all these are coming out of Designed as
Designed and
development company.
Yeah, as a development company. So Designed was a partner. So with Snapprint, I have two other partners, and Designed, and so on. And so after being involved in several startups, we saw that we're really operating in an inefficient way. Because each startup, there was commonalities amongst the startups, right? So each one needed, let's say, a secretary, a space, a meeting room, and we would get them individually because each one is an entity, right? Has its own set of partners. But these resources weren't utilized. So I had an office in Hawali, and I had a meeting room that I never used. But I would still pay rent for it, right? And I would have to maintain it and all of that. And so this is how the idea of Neo came about. Is that we create a platform that allows us to share these common resources more efficiently, basically. So you use what you need rather than using what the market basically offers you.
Okay. So there's a business approach of scratching your own itch. You had a problem that you wanted to solve first, and then you looked at the opportunity to actually expand and cater for others.
Definitely.
Okay. And so how did you model Neo itself as a business? So you brought like all your businesses and got them into a single location, but then to actually run it as a business, as Neo, what was the thinking behind it?
No, so we treated it as a separate business, right? So it from the start, so we identified the pain by having these several startups and noticing the inefficiencies that we were having, but then it was run as an entity on its own. So even the businesses that we have there pay rent to Neo. But yeah. I don't know if I'm answering the question.
No, what's the business model? You started Neo to sort of scratch your own itch because you had these different businesses being operated in different locations, so the model wasn't that efficient.
So we figured that everybody's itching, right? So we need to scratch everybody's back. So that's why we that's why we went into this business. So you're asking about the business model?
Business model of Neo.
Okay, so how we're generating revenues and all of that. Yeah, so it's if you want to look at it without sugarcoating, it's rental. So we rent a space, and this is how we generate our revenues.
Okay.
So we rent the space and we sublease it, and so this is our cost structure, and this is our revenue model, basically.
Okay. But within the sort of co-working space in Kuwait, we have, for example, Riyada, we have Cubicle, we have Mafazik. In what way do you try to make Neo different than the rest? Are there added services, or what makes sort of Neo shine?
So what makes Neo shine? I think the members make Neo shine. And then we try not to go about our business by looking at other people in the same space. Rather, we look at the customers and their needs. And so, I mean, competition and other players in the industry tend to cause a lot of noise, right? So you see these guys are doing this, so you want to do the same, and you see these guys are doing this, and you want to sort of make sure you're not missing out on what's going on in that domain. But we try to focus on what the users need, and I think this helps us sort of stay focused and eliminate the noise. Yeah. So
Okay.
again, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question.
No, that's
or,
a very good answer.
Thank you.
Okay, now I'd like to take you back to your first venture, which was the Gold Courts.
Yeah.
Is that still operational? What happened to that
It's
as a project?
no, it's not. It's on like sleep mode kind of. So it's not really operational.
Okay.
It's not really generating revenues.
Okay, even though we've seen the rise of several startups trying to tackle the same problem. So
Yeah.
we have even a Bahraini startup
Yeah,
called
yeah,
Mala'ib.
Ahmed, yeah.
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 So are you seeing a change in the trend right now, or that's not something you're giving attention to?
Exactly. So I sort of got out of this
Okay.
this domain.
By the way, I'm going to poke at each
No,
venture
you're
so you
not,
can
yeah,
give
yeah.
us more detail.
No, you're not poking. I can give
Okay.
you more details. Yeah.
Excellent. And so that's Go Courts.
Yeah.
Now, Think Cafe.
Yeah.
What's the thinking around that? Is it something you'd like to expand to other locations?
We're looking into that. Now I have also, my other partners, they're handling the management and all of that. So I'm not really involved in,
The operations.
and the operations and that. But yeah, so I mean, Think Cafe was really our first attempt to create a co-working space
Yeah.
for startups. And it was one of the best lessons. And I think actually each one of these ventures is, I think a lesson is underestimating how much value we got out of it. It's like a degree on its own. So Think Cafe taught us that you can plan to do something, but then the market really dictates what happened to the startup. So there the focus was on startups, but it ended up more for students.
Okay. I think that's the case with all cafes. They get dominated by students.
Yeah. But the lesson learned was pricing.
Mm-hmm.
So how you price, how you position yourself in the market, sort of decides who your market segment is.
Okay. Given that venture within the food and beverage space, did you find it as something that's interesting, worth pursuing more?
Yeah,
What was
your
your
certainly
impression?
it's so before we started Think Cafe, we said, well, it's very easy. We need few couches, and we need a coffee machine and a fridge, and you got yourself a coffee shop. And so when we started, it turned out
That's not enough.
you need a bit more than these things. It has a very complex operation, right? You're dealing with several suppliers. You're dealing with food, so expiry and all of that stuff. And then at the other end, you're dealing with customers, and you have to, do your marketing, your sales, and all of that stuff. So it's quite a complex operation, but it's interesting. And I think there are a lot of opportunities still in the F&B sector. When we're talking about F&B, we usually think about coffee shops and restaurants.
Yeah.
But they're way more than coffee shops and restaurants. These are just a stage in a very large, let's say, supply chain.
Okay. But are you still tapped into that market, or?
Yeah. We have. Yeah.
Okay. And where do you see the greatest opportunities sort of emerging within the food space?
I'm not an expert بالFNB هذا, so I'm not gonna say what's the direction or where the industry is going. But I certainly believe that there's so many opportunities out there in the F&B. Again, because you have so many restaurants, you have so many cafes, you have so many suppliers. Yet it's a highly fragmented industry, right? Everyone is operating, individually. So there's room to make it more efficient, and by making it more efficient, there's always, a place to make some money doing that.
Yeah. Okay. And how does operating a tech startup compare to operating food and beverage or a community space?
These are very general questions, Haytham. I wish I read the questions before I have it.
Just your impression.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
How do you feel
See,
about these two different
I mean, when
businesses?
we're talking about startups, I think there is a common theme,
Yeah.
and that is that you come across I'm not going to say problems, but challenges. You embrace these challenges, you overcome these challenges. So this is common to all startups, whether it's in the F&B or the tech or co-working spaces. And, however, each industry has its own specifics that you'd have to deal with.
Do you have a preference? Like, do you prefer actually working on a tech startup, or you prefer?
No, I guess my preference is in finding a problem and developing a solution around it, and hopefully make a living providing that solution. I think that on its own is interesting. Whether it's in the tech, F&B, or the co-working spaces, the journey itself is rewarding. Because you start with assumptions, then you validate, you do some research, and then you launch a product. You see it's not what you thought it would be, and then you go back, you reiterate, and then you go again, and then it works, and you see. So this experience, I think, is what I prefer.
Yeah. Okay. But you actually had to develop the right kind of mindset in order for you to see these, like, instead of calling them problems, you see them as challenges. Like, that's a different mindset than many people who start a business and then once they see it failing, they say, I must have done something wrong. I'm not good at it, for example. What are, like, the sort of the common ideas that you need to keep in mind for you to continue going?
See, I think it all depends on our definition to things, right? So okay. When we say failure, right? What do we mean by failure and success? Maybe if we see a coffee shop with a long line, people waiting and trying to get their cup of coffee, we think this is a successful coffee shop. But you compare that to a coffee shop that has 2,000 branches across the globe, then it's really not a successful one, right? Yeah. So success and failure, it's a relative.
It's how you define them.
Yeah, it's a relative term. Yeah, I might be successful to someone, but I might be a failure to someone else.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I think if you try to figure out the absolute meaning of failure and success, it's really higher than that, right? I mean, we usually measure failure and success with KDs. Are we making money? We're not making money.
Yeah.
But I think failure is when we don't attempt and when we don't try to actually, we don't make the leap, and when we stay where we are, basically. I think this is failure. Trying, attempting, I think this is success, regardless of the results.
Okay. So when you're faced with, let's say you launch an app and then nobody's using it, what kind of narrative, what kind of conversation do you have with yourself? Is it, okay, at least I tried, or how do you approach it?
No, we look back. What was the problem?
Okay.
So with Deera, we started first with a website. It's a non-profit, so we're trying to cut costs and we launched and we started talking, and it's a non-profit, and it's a very noble initiative, but no one would use it, and so then we went back and then we figured that, well, it's a website, and people use the website on their computer, so you'd have to wait for them to go back home and then take their laptop and file a complaint, and so it's really not convenient. You didn't really solve the problem of convenience that they had. So when we launched the app, we thought it would pick up, but it didn't. And And so what I started doing, I started reporting issues myself.
Okay.
And then we showed people that this actually works. So we started showing them the before and after photo. We've done that for a month. And then we started seeing users converting and reporting. And then it picked up. This is part of the learning experience, yani.
Okay. But looking back at what happened and what you could have improved on. Okay.
This is the best way actually to figure out things, is that you develop a product, you launch it, you see what works, what doesn't, and then you go back, you fix it, because otherwise everything is based on assumptions.
Yeah.
So you're assuming that people need this, you're assuming that people are going to find you. So these are all assumptions that will be validated once you launch. And so you go and you see what assumptions that you put and they weren't correct. You go fix, and then you go back.
So we have a few people with tech startups in the audience. Okay, if you were to give advice based on your experience with multiple projects, what kind of problems do you commonly see or you've experienced and you'd like to tell them or help them avoid? Let's begin with, let's say, the business model. What kind of challenges around making money from a tech startup?
I think the best way to go about a tech startup is first just talking about it, right? Before you even get into development and the design and all of that stuff, you talk about it. You see if there is actually demand for it. You try to estimate the market. You try to look into scalability. Can you really scale this idea to other countries or markets? And if this checks, then focusing on a minimum viable product is a good way to go about it. This is how you sort of reduce risk, right? Everybody talks about risk and all of that. So you minimize the investment, the initial investment. You focus on the main features of the app, and then you launch. You validate the assumptions.
Yeah.
And then you go from there, basically. Yeah.
Okay. Your approach seems very scientific when it comes to like assessing the business opportunity as well as assessing the problems that did go. What problems that you faced?
So what do you mean scientific?
As in, like you're treating it as an experiment, and then once you get results, you say, okay, how can we change what we did in order to get?
But I think this is human nature. I think the scientists, they laid out this scientific habit, but kids do that.
Yeah.
They experiment, right? They try things. It doesn't work. They go try things differently until it works, and this is how they learn, and they learn pretty fast, and they're pretty good at it, experimenting. So not really, I guess I should be more playful to be childish about it, not scientific, but yeah.
Okay, and in terms of development, what are the development challenges when it comes to building apps?
So I think first understanding what development is. A lot of people come in, they think that the developer is the guy that has the magic stick, right? And he
can do everything.
He can do everything from design to copywriting to user experience to the development itself. But they're actually different roles, right?
Yeah.
So the developers, they code, from left to right, top, bottom. This is what they do.
Yeah.
And then you have people that do the user experience and user interface. And then you have people that do the copywriting and all of that stuff, which these are all important elements in building an app. So it's not only the development. The development is only a part of this entire process.
Yeah.
But people put all the load on the developer that always seems like they're under-delivering, right? Because we're setting high expectations and the guy is just a developer, right? He's not a designer, he's not a...
Yeah.
So I think knowing this would help.
Yeah.
And this is what we usually do. We try to manage expectations, right? This is this is what a developer does. This is what.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, that's excellent because I do see a lot of people expect the developer to present them with good design.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you have to give them a good
Yeah,
design for them
it's not
to
his
execute.
job. Yeah, it's not his job to actually get into the design. يعني. And what seems common sense, يعني, حقنا, it's not really common sense to the developer. He's really concerned about functionality and
Implementation,
how clean,
so execution.
how clean his code is, and so this is how you should evaluate the developer, not by, where he placed the button, why he chose this color.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, shifting gears to the business and management aspect of it, how did you choose your partners, your business partners? Was there a specific criteria? Was there a process to it?
Yeah. So I think there's a criteria. However, it's done in a very ad hoc manner. I partner with people that believe in the vision. So we'd sit before we start a business, and we would talk about how the business would look like maybe in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And if I see him excited, this is usually a good sign.
Okay.
But I think after choosing the partner, also managing expectations and roles and tasks is also important.
Yeah, and these conversations happen before you actually commit to becoming partners?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So usually how and this is, again, I'm talking because I've, let's say, not failed, but I didn't do well in some partnerships, and we figured out that this was the issue. Because when you start, everybody's working, everybody's putting 300%. But then, you run out of fuel, and then this is when you start pointing fingers, right? I'm doing this, you're not doing much. So when you start defining roles clearly, expectations, things usually flow much smoother.
Okay.
This way. Yeah.
Nice. Any specific criteria you look for in partners? Beyond just the agreement with the vision?
Yes, this is a scientific way of going about that, right? Categorizing stuff. No, but no, not really. But yeah, believing in the vision, I think this is the most important thing.
Okay. Now, when it comes to hiring your staff, are you the one that usually does it, or do you delegate that to a partner?
I used to do it, but now I'm delegating it to partners and other people that we hired. Yeah.
Okay. And how do you maintain like a specific culture within your employees? What kind of sort of values do you want them to have? How do you ensure that they live up to these values?
Again, I think also employees, they're partners. So they have to believe in the vision.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do, then everything is easy from there, right? Because you also define the framework, right? This is why we're doing this, and we're doing it together. And so you can easily talk about shortcomings if you see it, because the framework is defined, and so it's clear. This is what we're supposed to do, and we're not doing it. And,
okay.
And then yeah. So this is how we ensure that everybody's on the same page.
Okay, so just agreeing with the vision is like what the core of the company.
Exactly, and you have people wanting to work there because of pay and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And you have people that want to work with you because they believe in what you're doing, and so these are the type of people that we look for when we do the hiring. Yeah.
Nice. And now, given your work with Neo, it's 2 years old now, around.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've been mingling a lot with business owners, startup founders. What are the common problems you're seeing?
I think the major problem that we have in Kuwait, it's not licensing, it's not funding, it's not finding an office, because we solved that problem. No. I think the problem is in the mindset. A lot of people want to be, entrepreneurs, and they want to get in that domain. um, without acting like entrepreneurs. Yeah, we have a society that's used to welfare.
Okay.
And so we have a very high sense of entitlement. And I think this is the problem that most people face here in Kuwait. We're operating in a country that subsidizes most of the services, right? Electricity. Most businesses, they have to worry about electricity elsewhere.
Yeah.
This is one of their major expenses, right? Utilities, but we don't have it in our balance sheets. Many businesses, they have to worry about taxes. We don't pay taxes. So it's really not the infrastructure. We keep picking on the infrastructure, but I think it's the mindset that needs to change. We do have a lot of problems in the government as far as registration and all of that stuff, but these are the easiest problems you'll face starting a business, right? Figuring out your customers, how to market, how to meet your obligations at the end of the month. These are bigger problems than the ones that we usually complain about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but what do you feel would be the solution to changing people's mindsets?
I'm not sure, to be honest. But this is, if you want to change this mindset, you have to do it nationwide.
Okay.
We're really lucky. Even starting a business is subsidized, right? Because we get dam al-amala.
Yeah.
And so it's elsewhere you can't. The risks are much higher. Here it's almost, and here we have perceived risks. People think that it's risky to start a business, but it's not. If you fail, you're not going to sleep in the street, or you're not going to have food to eat. You'll be fine.
Okay. Is it possible that, given the fact that we're living in somewhat of a welfare state, that we're not experiencing the real consequences of a failed business? Maybe that's why we feel like every business we sort of start has a cushion to it, so we're not giving it our most.
No, I think it's well, that's true, and I think it's also the availability of alternatives. So.
So you always have a safety net.
Exactly.
There's a government job.
Most people starting a business, they have, and actually a lot of people quit starting their business or quit their business halfway because they get another opportunity, let's say a scholarship or something like this. They abandon the business and then they go. So it's the availability of alternatives here. Startups, it's a lot of people do it as a lifestyle kind of exercise, but elsewhere it's a way of survival, right? Unemployment is high, so people are moving into the startup scene. But yeah.
Okay, and from an ecosystem point of view, if we were to encourage entrepreneurship, what can NAU or what can other players within the space do in order to encourage people to become entrepreneurs and actually succeed? So we want to increase their chances of success.
I think then we need to just increase the number of people trying.
Okay. It's a numbers game.
Yeah. I think this is because as soon as you start, as soon as you try it once, it's really a school, and being in startups, and it literally compares to going to school. So now if you go to a private school, if it's not subsidized or a scholarship, you'd pay like $30,000 maybe, I would say.
Yeah.
And then at the end, after 4 years, you only have a piece of paper that says you have a bachelor, and then you still have to go figure out how, you have to find someone that hires you and pays you. So with startups, it's even actually better, right? Because you can spend this much, right? It's $30,000.
Yeah.
and you'll definitely learn way more than you do in school. Actually, most schools now, they're moving into changing the curriculum to be somewhat similar to, right? We're hearing about what PBL, problem-based learning.
Project-based learning, yeah.
Project-based learning. And so this is what you do on a daily basis when you're working on your startup. However, when you're working on your startup, there's a chance that the startup, you succeed in its relative meaning. Yeah. So I think I answered another question again.
I think you delved into like education. Okay.
But yeah, to encourage people, I think we just need to encourage people to try.
To try out more.
And I think it's only an educational game. Yani we just have to show people that there's really not much to lose. There aren't really. Yani it's not risky to start a business, especially in Kuwait. And the fact that the government employs, I don't know, 80% of the population, this also ensures somewhat low competition, right?
Okay.
Everybody is busy with their day job, so competition is not that high.
Okay, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah. I mean, all the challenges that you see, they're actually opportunities. Even I heard, yani, when people complain about registration and licensing and how this is a natural filter, right? If people can't get past registration, they shouldn't get into the startup because the problems are way bigger, right? I mean, it's and so it's good that it's complex.
Okay.
Because if you can't figure this out, you can't figure out the rest.
So maybe it was by design.
I'm not pro, يعني كذي bureaucracy and all of that, but I'm trying to look on the positive side of things.
Yeah. Interesting. Now, looking at your day-to-day as a business owner, how do you, what does a regular day in your life look like?
So I wake up in the morning.
Okay. That's a good sign.
Yeah. I go to the gym. And then just go to work. And then spend maybe 9-10 hours.
Okay.
And then go back home, hang out with my wife and my kids, and go to bed.
Okay. Those 10 hours at work, what do they look like?
Okay. Well, so now at Neo, I think I'm privileged to be around several startups. So to me, this is also a learning experience. Talking to people from different industries and different fields certainly help and then managing stuff in the development company also, meeting clients, which is also another opportunity to meet interesting people. And I think this was one of my major issues when I first graduated, is that how am I going to meet interesting people, right?
Yeah.
You go to Douaniya, people are interested in soccer, video games and things like that, and it's boring.
Yeah.
So this is like the best way to surround yourself with people that are productive and that can actually add value to you.
Yeah. But do you have like a way of prioritizing your tasks or making sure that you're being as productive as possible? So in terms of, let's say, putting all your meetings in one day, or trying to focus on a few core sort of tasks and then delegating other tasks. Yeah, what's your thinking around business?
I try to minimize meetings as much as I can, because most of the time they're just not as productive as they should be. It's like 5 minutes meetings and then 2 hours just talking.
Yeah.
I try to write a short list of the most important things that I need to do that day. And I get them done. Delegation certainly helps when you do have other people around you. When we first started, there was no delegation. was the T-boy, I was the secretary, I was the everything, the marketing guy. But yeah, so this is how I try to.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's the sort of future plan for Neo? Because I know you've expanded to a new location. What's the thinking around that as well?
I guess we'll just try to keep serving our members.
But is the thinking that within 5 years I want to have 10 locations, or is it just once a space is filled up, you know that there's an opportunity for more tenants, so you find another location and go like ad hoc in that sense?
No, not really. We try to focus on what the users need. And the scene changes. It's a very fluid scene when it comes to the startups. Regulations changes as well.
Yeah.
Government regulations, which certainly affect how we conduct our business. So again, we focus on what the customers need, and we go from there. We really don't. Our KPIs are not set in a way where we say 10 locations or you know what I mean. It's not really tied to.
Okay, it's very responsive to the market, actual market.
Yeah.
Okay, Neo has a really impressive library, so I want to ask about books that have had an influence on you. Can you name like a few books? Or key ideas that have changed your perspective?
I don't read a lot. This is
Okay.
one habit. But a book that I actually enjoyed reading is The Blue Ocean Strategy.
Okay.
I like it because it's a straight to the point kind of book, and it's a set of tools that you can actually implement in your business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other books that have changed your perspective?
Again.
You don't read them?
Nah. But yeah, Blue Ocean Strategy is one of the books that I read twice actually.
Okay.
So the first one was just going through the book, and the second time it was okay. Let me try to implement some of these strategies and tools that they're providing.
Okay.
Did you read it?
No.
You should.
That one was not right.
To change your perspective.
Okay. So thank you for the recommendation. Thank you very much, Haytham.
Thank you.
Do you see the Kuwait ecosystem being similar to Silicon Valley in the future?
Yeah. Why not? Again, I think we don't have enough attempts at the tech industries. I think people are shying out. Many businesses, maybe they don't make it because of the availability of other alternatives. So we don't see. I think the difference between us and Silicon Valley, it's not really the infrastructure. Infrastructure is there. Infrastructure issues is there, but I think it's the mindset. They come into the scene with a totally different mindset than us, and I think this is the issue. It's not really the technology or the know-hows. I mean, these are things that you can learn, but the mindset. It's something. I think what we've seen what we've seen with Talabat, I think certainly helped. So as a development company, we've seen we've seen a surge in people wanting to develop their apps and online businesses right after they announced the Talabat deal. So I think having more of these will definitely increase the number of attempts, which I think will lead to us getting there. And I think they're more to the people, expert بهالدومين هذا than us. ومحمد هني, I think he's a.
Hello, Mr. Haytham. First of all, congrats for your new office.
Thank you.
The new co-working space.
Okay.
I would like to ask, what exactly do you attribute to your success? In short, like one thing that attributes to your success.
Again, I think success is very relative. But I think in the absolute sense, I think it's just trying new things is what I like about yani, how I'm conducting things. This is not one word, but that's the best I could do.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Haytham is a person that I enjoy so much knowing, and I can say that the energy he has creates a place where a magnet to other people. So Haytham, talk a little bit about this passion that's in you that drives others also to be inspired. Sometimes you can't explain it, but I can sometimes feel it in you.
مشكور أول شيء محمد قاعد ترفع لي. I don't respond very well to compliments. I'm going to take a few seconds to a magnet. When we're talking about Neo, I think it's really the members that are the magnet to other people. It's not me or my partners. I really don't respond very well to the good هذا.
Let me help you.
You have to rephrase the question to the completely حتى I can.
Let me give you a title. Communities. You've been very thinking very deeply in engineering certain communities. You shared with me one time one of your experiment, getting people around food, was something that was powerful. That type of experimental things that you come up with, I think is...
So these are sort of, it's a combination of experiments and observations. And so, it's very interesting. We saw people, usually people in a formal setup, they're tight, they don't open up. And so we saw that two places where people felt at ease. One is the smoking room, which is terrible. But in the smoking room, this is where they actually they open up and they discuss a lot of ideas. I'm not encouraging smoking, but Ahmed knows Ahmed. And the other place is around food. So when there's food, also people feel more comfortable with each other for some reason. So after noticing that, we started taking care of our smoking rooms. We put stools and sofas, and we started doing more activities that involved food. We tried to choose healthy food, but sometimes we don't succeed so much. But I guess building communities, it's really all about the members that you sort of bring into your community, and the service that we provide doesn't appeal to a lot of people, and that's fine, because these are not the people that we want them to be a part of the community. And this is when we're talking about the lessons learned from Think Cafe. Pricing is important to sort of apply a filter to who comes in, and then the vibes and the environment. A lot of people, they want an office for themselves. They don't want to interact with people. So having a social hour is something. It's something that they don't favor. So this is applying a filter at the other end, and we make sure that all the people that join the community are actually a good fit. And this is also by sort of observation. At the beginning, this wasn't the case, and then we started figuring out as we went along.
Any more questions?
I have a friend who's visiting who told me a story. He's he was a speaker today in an event that I had. But if you can share the story you told me about, your friend who gave a chance to the young people who are, yeah, because I think that will be an inspiring thing for everyone to know about.
Yeah. So a company I used to work for in the UK, the guy who ran that was a serial entrepreneur, is a serial entrepreneur. He's a gentleman named Paul Barry Walsh. So he runs a thing called the Fredericks Foundation. And that takes kids who've not had a good life, who've not had a good experience, but have a key idea, and they invest in that child for the first year. Usually the age range is anywhere between 16 to sort of 30. So it's maybe they've had a drug problem, maybe they've been in trouble with the police, the kind of people who can't get financing from the normal route. And they will then fund that business idea for 12 months. They will take no equity stake whatsoever in the business, but they'll mentor them with people out of the industry who can inspire them and help them to move forward. Now, obviously, it's a two-way street. They have to be sure that the person wants that life behind them and that the idea is acceptable, but they'll provide them with office space, 12 months worth of financing, and the right kind of people to help them move through. So there's a whole set of businesses now in the UK, and they have success is around about 5 to 6 per year. Maybe he's out of 40. So, it's not everybody who makes it, but they really give these people a new chance and a new opportunity. And, could you see something like that working here? Would that be an idea that, you would be open for? But that is one thing that kind of inspired me in the UK, was seeing how, somebody who's already made it really wants to give back to the community.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is amazing, but yeah, and I think it takes a lot of courage actually to sort of invest or give back to society, right?
I mean, some would say that it's actually tax deductible in the United Kingdom.
Yeah, well, that's
But
yeah.
he is doing it for the real reason.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
But it is also in the UK, I guess one thing that helps him is its
Taxation,
deductible.
yeah.
Do it through a foundation.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is really an investment in the long run. Yeah. Hopefully one day we'll do that.
My question is about the offices. For startups that don't have a commercial license, can they use the offices at New as their main office?
Yeah, so we have a range of services. We have co-working spaces.
Okay.
So with co-working spaces, you can use the services, be a part of the community, but then you won't be able to actually license, and they're more affordable. But then we do have offices with PASI numbers, so you can use that to license your business. They're a bit pricier than the co-working space, but yeah, you can.
Okay. All right.
So we have maybe 40 companies that are registered on the locations that we have.
I wanted to ask you, how many offices do you have in the New?
The number of offices that we have?
Yeah.
So maybe we have 50.
And how many are available? It's available or not?
We do have available offices, yeah.
Mm.
Okay, so I'd like to reverse it a bit and ask the audience, which one of you has a tech startup currently? Okay, great. And I'd like to know what are the biggest challenges that you're facing within your startup? Okay, but what sort of problems within, for example, let's take development. What kind of problems are you facing in development? Okay. And if I can ask Haytham, and as well as anyone within the audience, what kind of solutions or what kind of approaches you've had to a similar problem that you can share with us? So in terms of, for example, communication with the developers, what would you advise about like resolving issues that come out of communication?
These are in-house developers, or you're outsourcing it with a company? I think the client shouldn't communicate with the developers to begin with, because usually they have really poor communication skills, depending on
Okay.
but يعني what I've seen.
So what would the solution be?
There should be a project manager, a person that does quality assurance. But when you're dealing with the developer directly, you end up doing all these activities, يعني managing the project, doing the quality control. But these are all tasks that should be assigned to people
So a project
specialized.
manager within that development team.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is why people have problems with developers, because I mean they're just developers. They're not experts in quality control. Sometimes we have people that does only testing, people that do only testing for the app or the new features rolled out.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah, you'd like that.
I have some ideas on that. I agree with you entirely. A project manager who's controlling and running the program. Even when you're using agile or waterfall methodologies, you still want very clear targets and a very clear functional spec. And then as that product starts to go live, automating a testbed environment so that you've got a full set of tests that you run over it automatically each time you create a new code drop is really important. And then from a support perspective, try using other media. So like things like WhatsApp support or remote capabilities into their support channel. Because it's a lot easier to see a problem or to be able to troubleshoot a problem through remote connectivity than it is to listen to an end user on the phone. And the quality of the information that's coming back. People who report the problem need a certain level of information to be able to troubleshoot that. Quite often, they won't give you necessarily the right information, so enabling that first line support with not a script that they're going to go through like a robot, but making sure that they're trained enough to get a certain level of information for each call that's relevant to your app. That can really help you to solve some of the more complex problems that are maybe intermittent or bug related. So that would be my advice for improving that piece. But you're absolutely right. It starts with the development, and it starts with having a good spec, even if it's a sprint. Still have a
Okay, I'd like to thank Haytham for joining us tonight, and thank you all for coming. I also would like to thank our sponsors, Tap Payments, as well as the Kuwait London company. Unfortunately, due to the dust, they weren't able to provide proper sliders. So sorry, Haytham. Because he agreed to do the interview because they were burgers. So I feel guilty about that. The other thing, we do have coffee available by Kava, which is a Bolivian bean, and it tastes great. So if you want to have caffeine shot, go ahead. Thank you very much.
I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Sardab Lab and the community for giving us a chance to connect with amazing community members and people in the entrepreneurial scene. Thank you.